I'm William Swing. I'm from West Virginia, parish priest, Washington, D.C., and then Diocese of California. I was the bishop for 27 years, and during those years, I began to work on the creation of a United Religions, and that turned into the United Religions Initiative. We signed our charter in the year 2000, and so I retired as bishop 14 years ago, and I work full-time at age 84 for the United Religions Initiative. I'd been ordained as a priest and a bishop for a long time, and I had given no thought to interfaith work. And one day I was sitting in my office in San Francisco, and I got a phone call from the United Nations. They were celebrating their 50th anniversary in 2 years. They wanted to come back to San Francisco because that's where the charter of the UN was written and signed, and they wanted to come home. And they said, could we come to Grace Cathedral and have a big UN 50th celebration? I said, great. They said, would you host it? Great. They said, our vision is we'd like to have all the nations of the world there together with all the religions of the world. And they said, we'll bring all the nations. We have 185 ambassadors. And we'd like you to bring all the religions of the world together. And I said, sure, I'll make a few phone calls this afternoon. And then you go to bed that night in February of 1993, and I was just tossing and turning. You know, when you say yes to something that's way over your head and you think, I shouldn't have done that? Well, that's where I was, and I began to think, okay, nations, religions. Nations have gotten together every day for 50 years to struggle together for global good, and in the same 50 years, the religions of the world haven't spoken to each other together, not 1 minute. And I was thinking, as dumb as this sounds to me, talking to me and talking to God, I thought there ought to be a United Religions. I don't know what it would look like. I didn't know how we'd get there. I didn't know the price you'd have to pay. I was fairly ignorant about other religions that I didn't care about. I cared about the Episcopal Church and Christianity, and other people, okay, that's fine. But I didn't know about Muslim and Hindu and all that kind of stuff. But I made a commitment in February of 1993 to be a catalyst for the creation of this thing that never existed. And so that led me into not only learning a lot about other religions, but knowing people of other religions. I think it's more important to know people of other religions than to know about the religions. You can sit around in a library and study all you want, but getting out in the street and meeting people of other religions, that has possibilities. You can build on that. So I got in an airplane and I flew around the world, and I talked to, I thought, oh, well, okay. Then you go to the religious leaders. So I went to the Pope, and I went to Mother Teresa and the Shankaracharya and Kanchipuram and the Grand Mufti of Al-Azhar, Sheikh of Al-Azhar, and on and on and on. And I said, are you guys ready to deputize somebody from your tradition to meet with somebody from another tradition to pursue peace among religions? Because if we got more peace among religions, it would change world history. And they all had the same answer. The answer was absolutely not. So I said, okay, the vision is good, but I got the wrong clientele. It's not the people at the top. It's the grassroots people. People at the top have no latitude. They can't get out of their pyramid. They're up at the top. But the people down at the bottom, they have flexibility. They can move. So then I had to change my thinking and said, okay, united religions would not be built on religious leaders. It'd be built on grassroots people. And therefore, once you get into the grassroots, then you got to change everything. People say, well, what about including indigenous? Well, of course, their spirituality oftentimes is older than some religions. And how about people who say, I'm spiritual but not religious? Sure, why not? If you're going to open up the door, just open the door all the way. The folks at the top aren't going to get this thing done. Folks at the bottom, they got to have some latitude and some possibility of moving big. So I still am not an expert in other religions, but I got expert friends in all the religions and tribes and all kinds of things. Well, I've gone through two kinds of stages in my evolution. The first stage had to do with writing the charter of URI. We got the guy who invented the Visa card, D. Hock, to sit down with 14 of us for 3 years to say, if you're going to create this united religions, it's got to be based on what? And so we decided it can't be based on religious belief about Yahweh or Allah. People have been arguing about religious things for centuries. If we get into the ancient arguments about God and doctrine and who's saved and who's not saved, we're never going to get any place. So we said, okay, let's just make the united religions not about religion. Let's base it on other things. And so people, it's not our first principle is it's not a religion. It's a bridge building organization. The world has enough religions. It doesn't have enough bridges. Well, once you get into that, you got to say, well, what's bedrock for us? If you get into all the religions and you get down to the nubbin, what's down there that we could all agree on? So let me give you a couple of concepts that we came up with in the charter. I'll only hit about 8, so hang on. To create cultures of peace, justice, and healing for the earth and all living beings. To unite and heal and protect the earth. To bring the wisdom and values of our religion, spiritual expressions, and indigenous traditions to bear upon the environment and environmental challenges facing the earth community. Next is to awaken our deepest truths and to manifest love and justice among all life on the earth community. And finally, to act upon sound ecological practices to protect and preserve the earth for both present and future generations. So when we got right down to it, the one thing that we could agree on is the earth. We can't agree on theology, but we can agree on we're not going to make it. None of the religions are going to make it if we don't do something about the earth. So that was my first stage of this, and that led me into working on a strategic plan for URI. You know, if those are our principles, then how do you put that into practice? And we have little cooperation circles around the world that spontaneously come up, and guess what? The number one issue of those things that just naturally come up is the environment. We have more cooperation circles working on environment than anything. And we didn't force them to do that or even suggest to do that. They just did that. If you look into the hearts of people who, of all the beliefs, they understand we got to have fresh water to drink in our village. We got to be healed of the virus. We got to have blood transfusions, and therefore we got to get all the religions together to make that happen. So that's stage number one. Stage number two has to do with nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons, as they are right now, constitute the immediate and ultimate climate change for all time. If they go off, if one goes off and the other counters and then the other counters, and there's nothing left of life. Forget the environment. The environment's gone like everything else. Nuclear weapons are the ultimate environmental issue, as far as I see. And therefore, we're at a tipping point right now. We've gotten the warheads down from 70,000 down to 14,000, but where are we now? We got them down based on trust, and the trust was between Gorbachev and Reagan. Do you think there's any trust between Kim Jong-un and Netanyahu and Donald Trump and on and on and on and on? There's no trust. If there's no trust, then what about the treaties? Well, the treaties are disappearing. We're just tearing up the treaties. And we're even talking about getting rid of the START talk, the new START talk between Russia and America, which had 90% of the weapons. So if you have no trust, you have no treaties, but what are you doing? You're expanding the weapons. You're making them bigger, you're making them stronger, and more people have access to them. And even though we've gone from 70 down to 14, right now is a time where the ship will leave the shore. And if it leaves the shore, you either base everything on sanity or insanity. Sanity is you get rid of them. The world got along for billions of years before we had nuclear weapons. Do you think it's going to make 2 centuries with nuclear weapons? Absolutely not. So personally, my evolution has taken me to environment to nuclear weapons. It's all the same. Nuclear weapons are environment. I love the Temple of Understanding. I remember when Bishop Paul Moore, he was my bishop in Washington, D.C. once upon a time, and he sent me a picture of a temple with all the religions of the world. And Paul, my goodness, you certainly are thinking big. What is this about? And then later on, when I was trying to start the URI, here comes Juliet Hollister. Here comes Allison Van Dyke to help me. I was nobody on the street in the interfaith world, and these folks, they had their game going, and they would help out a rookie who had no place in the world. And so I love being part of Temple of Understanding. That's not the question you asked, but that's the answer I want to give. Now I'm going to take my brain and move it over to concrete. I think taking up where I left off about nuclear, there were times when civilization was alert to the environmental impact possibility of nuclear weapons. First of all, when the first ones went off, the people who designed them, some of them just went nuts because they realized the awful, awful situation they put the Earth in. Then secondly, when we got to the Cuban Missile Crisis, and 50 miles away from Florida, there were these Russian nuclear warheads that were ready to go off on us. And then there was the time of the freeze where we mobilized the people of the United States to say, freeze those weapons. Don't keep going. Don't keep testing. Don't stop it. And there was a freeze. And after that, people just went to sleep. And the United States is in denial. And the world is in denial. There are some pockets of people who get it. But in a concrete way, the thing that I'm working on most is trying to get to the minds and the hearts of young people. Young people do understand the environmental risk that we have. They just haven't made that last connection of the environmental risk that nuclear weapons posed for this world. So let's see, 2 days from now, I'm going to meet with a whole bunch of young people to see how we can get a movement going. We're picking up all the names of this youth group and this young group and this group all over the world doing wonderful things. And we want to be a player with them. We want to help to bring them together. We want to play in the traffic with them and see what can happen. But you can't do everything. But one thing I can do is that I can work with young people with bringing to consciousness the environmental threat that these weapons pose. So, in terms of URI, we have well over 1,000 cooperation circles. And so one thing I can do is say, all of you who are working on the environment in your cooperation circles, God bless you. Keep going, get to know each other, expand it, talk, best practices, keep it going. So there are things that I could do, I do. When I sit down at breakfast, I like that bowl of cereal with the fruit. And I thank God for the people who grew the berries and the cows that gave the milk and the farmers who grew the wheat and the folks who did the sugar and all the people who bought those and sold those and transported those and brought them to my house so that I share in the world. The whole world comes to my cereal bowl, and I'm part of such a vast array of interconnected agencies in the world. And if I get in touch with how surrounded I am by resources that come to make my life rich and keep me alive, if I can develop a sense of respect for the interconnectedness of all life, it doesn't have to be heroic. It could be a bowl of cereal. Just have a consciousness that that we're all making each other's life, we all have the potential of making each other's life a deeper, richer, fuller, healthier, more complete. So if it's all about me and my agenda and my success and failure and my power to succeed, it's going to end up in a crash. But if I can get to a ever larger understanding of how we're all related, it's understanding kinfolk, understanding the family, the real family, not just the race family and the color family and the culture family, but the life family that we belong to, that keeps it all going. Well, I would say that there are two seminal parts The first one is, the beginning and the end are in your hands, O Creator of the universe. And then in the middle of the prayer, it says, help us to lift the fog of atomic darkness that hovers so pervasively over our earth, your earth. And there's the rub. Whose earth is it? That little tension between ownership and stewardship. That's where the prayer is nested, in that tension. And as all prayers, they go up to the one who is at the beginning of time and the end of time.